You're simply asked to look. Just look. Just look and see what's so. And it's a simple recognition. And if you have this recognition, if it's a direct experience and it's an undeniable direct experience that you have, it may be a simple matter of you're just realizing, oh, okay, that's the truth. That's what I am, is this awareness itself. And that may not shake your world because, you know, you realize that what I am is this awareness itself. However, unlike Ramana Maharshi or unlike other people like Eckhart Tolle, the realization that you're having is one that doesn't necessarily in and of itself take you out of your normal, ordinary way of being. And so it's not that scary, right? Because you see it, you see the truth, but you're also still just primarily identified with the person that you are and the body that you're in and this, all that, right? And that's why, after having seen it, it becomes complicated for people because they say, okay, well, since I've seen it directly and therefore I'm convinced there's no question about the truth, why is it that that's not, having seen it, why is it that that's not who I just am now, and I'm no longer suffering and I no longer identify with my personality or with all the things that troubled me and the problems that I had as a person? Why am I still a person, primarily living a person's life, primarily still identified with my body, primarily still have the problems that I have the complaints that I have, live with my bad habits, still don't get along very well with some of the people that I care about, etc. And so that, for many people, when they have that experience, then that becomes confusing and they're troubled by that. And it's very often the case that when that's the case, they go to a teacher, if they've been to a teacher that led them to this discovery, they may go back to that same teacher and say, hey, you know, what's the deal? What's going on? Why is it that I know I have this direct experience of who I am? I'm not questioning that at all. It doesn't seem like that's something that I can question, because how can I deny the awareness that I am? It's a fact. It's just what's so. However, having seen that, why is it that I come right back into being the psychological mess, or still have the anxiety that I have, or still have the depression that I have, or still have the bad habits that I have? I can't quit smoking, I can't stop drinking, I can't stop, you know, doing all the things that don't work, and I don't really take care of myself. Why? You know, why is it that I can't just see who I am and then be that? Because I saw it, why can't I just be that now? And you know, this is the real challenge. Even though the direct path is direct in the sense that you see directly what the absolute truth is about who you are, that doesn't mean, having seen it, you're going to be it, right? It's like one of the teachers that I study said about this the other day. He said the direct way from here, for example, to Philadelphia may be, you know, there's a direct way. If we put the information into a GPS and said, give me the most direct route to Philadelphia, right? It would give you that route. But it would still take you time to get to Philadelphia, you see? And that's the same thing with this. You can see the truth of yourself. That doesn't mean you're going to be there. You can see the direct path to Philadelphia. That doesn't mean, having seen the direct path to Philadelphia, you're going to be in Philadelphia. You still have to go through the time-bound process and deal with whatever's between you now here and Philadelphia. So they're going to be, you know, along that process, there are going to be obstacles, right? There are going to be challenges, there are going to be stop and go, you know, all that jazz. And it's the same thing with this. The thing with this is that the idea of it being a direct path is that you're not going to become what you are in the progressive approach to that, which there are progressive paths, right? In the progressive path, you don't directly realize who you are. You meditate, you practice certain what they call sadhanas. You practice certain practices, mantras, meditation, yoga, dieting, exercise, all the things that people practice in a spiritual context. And the idea being is that as you practice these things, you become more and more purified as a person, as a human being, and then eventually at some point you wake up to the truth of yourself. This approach is that you see the truth of yourself in the beginning. You start there, right? You start there. If it was a book about how to get to the total and complete realization of the truth of yourself, the first chapter would be to know what you are, and then the next chapters would be to deal with the process of realizing that. One of the things about the direct path is that if you get the truth of yourself and you get that it's already true, this is the thing about it, it's already true. So it's not going to happen, it's happened. It's already true. And so given that that's the case, the way you deal with the process of that being who you are consistently is you keep coming back to it. As you are confronted with the challenges of life, you actually contest the truth by going back to the experience of yourself as awareness and seeing the difference that makes. And then the other thing is the idea that you know yourself as awareness can be brought to bear on whatever it is that you're dealing with in life that's not working. And how that works is that awareness is non-judgmental. That's one of the things that makes it different from the progressive path. If you're working on yourself psychologically as a person, right, part of the problem that you have to deal with as a person trying to change is your own mind and the fact that your mind is judgmental. And so it makes you feel guilty about the things that you don't do that you should do. It makes you feel bad and remorseful. And so it undermines your power because that takes away from your ability to realize yourself. In the direct approach, there is no judgment. The awareness that you are has no judgment. And so if you just trust that awareness, they say in the Christian context, not my will, thy will. You just give it to awareness. You just give the problem to awareness and let the awareness have its impact on what's going on. And the way it does that is it doesn't judge what you're doing as being good, bad, right, or wrong, and doesn't make you a bad person or a sinner or anything like that. It just applies awareness. And the application of awareness is that if what's happening is being seen not to be workable, and to be seen as inconsistent with well-being, and to be seen as inconsistent with who you truly are, and what that you truly are is experiencing in terms of its happiness, peace, and well-being. If what you're doing is seen to be inconsistent with that, then there is a natural adjustment, back to aligning yourself with the way things work, right? Because it's, the reality of it is, if you take judgment out of the picture and you're interested in experiencing the possibility that your life is, which is the possibility of being happy, peaceful, content, effective in living your life, if you're interested in that and you take judgment out, then it's just a matter of continuing to adjust your course. In flying a plane, these big jet airliners that are, I don't know whether you know it or not, but most of these jet airliners are flown by computers, right? The pilot can take a nap, the plane's flying itself, right? However, even though that's the case, the pilot has to keep paying attention to the course the plane is on to get where it's going, because even though the computer can keep it on that course, given the weather conditions and the wind and all those other factors, the pilot still has to adjust, keep adjusting the plane to keep it on course. In small ways, but the computer can handle a lot of the factors. And it's the same thing. If you're aware, and for example, if you come to discover the truth of yourself as awareness itself, and of course you want to be that, right? You want to be that because it means that you can feel peace. It means that you can feel content. You can feel at ease. You can enjoy your life. You can let go of suffering. You stop expecting things to be any other way than they are. That's a natural way that you are as awareness. Awareness is just with the way things up here. It does not have an interest in changing anything. It allows things to be the way they are. And the wisdom of the awareness is that it knows that things already are changing. You don't have to change things. Change is a constant. Change is always happening. And so since you're not trying to change anything anymore, all you're doing is adjusting the way things are changing. That's all. You're not trying to change anything. You're just trying to maneuver in such a way that as change occurs, the changes are supporting the realization of who you are. And so as you deal with that, as you see, if you trust the experience and the conviction of yourself as awareness, then when you're not meditating and you're in your life where things matter, right? Then you want to keep orienting yourself back to the awareness, right? You want to keep, they say in Christian, one of the ways they talk about this in Christianity is they say, what would Jesus say, right? Well, it's the same type of thing here, is how does awareness see this? As awareness, how would awareness be with this? As awareness, what would awareness manifest in terms of actions and behaviors in the situation? To keep orienting yourself that way as you're going through your life without judgment or evaluation, and there's a natural process that unfolds in which there's more and more of a consistent experience of yourself as the truth. You're not seeking guidance to know who you are. You're seeking guidance to realize that and be that with consistency. In the progressive path, you're seeking guidance to know who you are. It's not the idea in that path. It's not that that's clear, that's done. I have no question about who I am. And now it's about bringing that into play in my life, being that in the world, right? In the progressive path, if you look at these other traditions that are the progressive approach, they don't talk directly about, they don't say, for example, you already are realized, you're already enlightened. Enlightenment is a goal, and you need to meditate, you need to recite mantras, you need to practice ethical behaviors. That's working with purifying the mind and purifying the person to get to the realization. In Vipassana, for example, in Vipassana meditation, for example, that's a progressive path. And in Vipassana meditation, you're taught how to meditate using this particular method and to understand. So this is an example of the progressive approach. You're taught to meditate, and mindfulness-based meditation is based on Vipassana, right? And Vipassana meditation, what you're taught to do in the 10-day course that's offered all over the world now, which is supposed to be based on the purest form of Vipassana, you're taught for the first 3 days to simply pay attention to the breath consistently, right? Meditate, pay attention to the breath, develop your ability to have a consistent attention. And then once that focus is strong, then on the 4th day they say, okay, now start to pay attention from the top of your head to the tip of your toes, gradually coming through your body, noticing any sensations in your body, just noticing any sensations without judging or evaluating the sensations. Notice heat, cold, itching, tightness, whatever it is, just notice from the head to the toe. And you do this for 4 days, 8-9 hours a day straight for 4 days. They don't say anything about the self. Nothing is said about the self. And then at some point during this process over the 4 days, they say, okay, now bring equanimity into this. What's that mean? It means now as you're observing the sensations in the body, observe them without attachment, observe them without preference, without judgment. Just notice them, simply observe them. Now, if you listen to the teaching behind this practice, it is said that this is about getting to the root reality of the way the mind works. And the root reality of the way the mind works, according to this particular progressive approach, is that things come in through your relationship to the world happens through your senses, yes? Right? Through the eyes, the ears, the touch, the taste, the smell, right? And so that all information is coming in through the senses. And then the mind recognizes the information, right? It recognizes it in relationship to what you've learned to be true, right? And then it goes further through the process of the mind, and the next thing that comes up in the mind is this dangerous or safe, right? This is how the body survives. Is this dangerous, or is this safe? Is this good, is this bad? Do I like it or do I not like it? And this is happening all the time. The mind's working this way all the time. And then after that, the next process that it goes through in the mind is, if it's good, I want more of it. If it's bad, I want less of it. So that process is in this tradition called clinging and aversion. I either cling to what it feels good and want more of that, or I avoid what's bad and want less of that, right? And this is going on all the time, right, in the mind, right? And so you see, they haven't said anything about the self, right? And this is the idea is by purifying the mind through practicing being unattached and not clinging and not judging and avoiding anything, but simply being an objective observer of whatever's happening. And whatever is happening, coming in through the senses and being experienced in the body through sensations. That's the bottom line, right? And so just by practicing that, you're purifying the mind. You're purifying the mind, and you're getting to the root cause of the mind. The root cause of suffering in the mind is clinging and aversion and judging and evaluating everything that's going on, right? And the way that plays out in your life is that we suffer because we're constantly processing everything that's going on in terms of whether I like it, I don't like it, it's good or it's bad, or I want it or I don't want it. And whenever I don't want it, it's there, and I don't want it, I don't like it, I'm resisting it, right? And now I'm uncomfortable, I'm suffering. So your life becomes run by the way the mind works. Your life is about getting more of what you want, more of what you think is going to make you happy, and less of what you don't want that you think is going to make you unhappy. And that explains human beings' behavior, doesn't it? If you think money's going to make you happy, your life is about getting more of it, right? If you think whatever it is that what you think, and what you don't want, you will avoid. You will judge and evaluate, and you'll resist, right? So if you don't want bad weather, then you're upset when the weather is not what you want. And so this explains the behavior of human life. But it hasn't said anything yet about who you are. That's the progressive approach. The idea is, if you just do this process over time, eventually the mind becomes so purified that you are not clinging and avoiding anything. You're aware of being able to be present to what's happening without judging or evaluating it, and that is the way awareness is. But you see, you arrive there through the process, right? But with the direct path, you start there. That's why in the contemplation we just did, right, you're asked to look directly at awareness and recognize and realize that you are that. It's not progressive. We're not going to work toward it. Recognize and realize that you are that. Now, having had that realization, what's going to come up, because just having that realization isn't going to change the way your brain works. So having had that realization, now you have to, and that's what he was talking about in terms of once you're awake, right? You wake up, and then the next step is to grow up. What does that mean? Well, in the conditioned state that most human beings are in, we're children. We're children. Psychologically, if you analyze your behavior the way psychologists do, and I'm a psychologist, so I can talk about this, your behavior, the patterns that you have in your behavior began as a child, right? Began as a child. And your understanding of what you were and of the world began as a child. And a child's mind is innocent and very primitive, doesn't really comprehend and understand the nature of reality, right? And so this continues. You may become more complicated as a person, but it's still oriented from the understandings and the experiences you had as a child. And that explains why grown people, adults, behave like children. And we really do, right? Isn't it childish? Isn't the human condition a childish condition? Isn't the idea of killing each other childish? That what runs our lives are our emotions and our reactions and our anger and our fear. Isn't that a child? Isn't that what determines a child's experience? And so that's what we really mean by growing up. You have to then take responsibility for your mind, take responsibility for your childishness, your pettiness, and start to go to work on paying attention to that, and by bringing in the awareness and having the awareness see the truth of what's going on in relationship to the way you are in the world, so that you can begin to move away from being a child, complete your childhood, let go of whatever feelings you had there that you didn't complete, reevaluate the way you see yourself in the world, and become more mature, right? That's growing up, right? And then cleaning up. Cleaning up means to pay attention and notice your addictions, notice your habit patterns, right, that are unhealthy, right? Cleaning up is to now pay attention to that and let awareness bear its witness to that without judgment, so that that starts to resolve itself and you become less addicted and less negative consequences on your body and on yourself. So there's growing up, there's cleaning up, and then the last one is showing up. Showing up is, who are you being in the world, right? Showing up is, who are you being in the world? Are you living your life just for what you can get? Or now, as the awareness, are you being in the world in such a way that you're out to make a difference and you want to make a contribution? And this is when the experience of unconditional love begins to express itself, right? This is when the discovery of what love really is comes into play. Because if you really understand what love is, if you really know the truth about love, you understand that love is experienced when you give it. That's from an awakened state, that's so clear. That's so clear. That love isn't something you're out to get, love is something that you're out to give. And it's when you're giving it that you experience love. So that's how you show up in the world. You have compassion for all of humanity, you have no enemies, and you're out to be of service. You're out to make a contribution and make a difference. And when you behave that way toward your children and toward the people you're closest to, your relationships start to work. It's really simple. So do you have this kind of...
Yeah, I do. I really just didn't really quite get the difference. Now I do.
Yeah, it's a good question, right? There is a difference. And you know, and I think the direct path, see, the direct path was always in the teachings, in all the teachings, but it was considered something that was too difficult for people to realize. You have to take us one step at a time and we'll get there, right? But now, ever since Ramana Maharshi and some of the more contemporary teachers, given the condition the world is in, and given the fact that people are different than they were back then. You have to understand, a human being, today's human being is a different creature than the human being 500 or 2,000 years ago. They needed a guru. They needed somebody that they could follow. But in the world we're in now, and how complex this world is, and how more complex human beings are, it is possible to take people directly to the truth. And if they get that experience, if they see that possibility, then they can continue to use the guidance necessary and keep referring to the truth of themselves as a place to come from and deal with the challenges of life. That's the thing about knowing who you are. If you know who you are, you don't have to prove it to anybody. You don't have to prove it to anybody. There's nothing to prove. There's nothing to prove. And you really are beginning to awaken and make contact with reality. You know, for example, one of the things that's very evident to me more and more these days is one of the ways we stay stuck in the state of mind that we're in is because of the way we relate to time, right? Time is really a powerful illusion, and even though we can have a conversation about time, and you know, if I present you with the evidence that time isn't real, nobody argues with that. Obviously, it's not real, right? But nonetheless, you live in it as if it is real, and just that brings you into this whole reality of being a person and relating to time as if it's real. You know, and even when you understand that time isn't real, and we talk about the timeless and so forth, people, and we talk about the power of now, or that the present moment is the only real reality. We don't take notice that our mind still sees that as it relates to time. There's the present time, there's the past and the future. No, that's still a misunderstanding. There is no time. There is no time. The experience you're having right now does not involve time, does it? The experience you're having right now does not involve time. It's just not there. There is no time. There is no future, there's no past, there's no present, there's no time. That's the realization. And when you have that realization and you understand the experience you're having in which there is no time is reality. Is reality. If you really get that just that realization shifts something. Just that realization shifts something. That there is no time. Not like to live in the present, right, and stop living in the future. No, the whole thing. There's nothing. There is no time. Yeah, and you see, that's the thing. It's like you have to understand that what that actual statement was is what he actually said was, I care about what happens, but I don't mind what happens. Because it doesn't mean that you don't care, but it means that you can allow what's happening to happen. That's wisdom, because it's happening. It's not happening. It's happening. You know, once it's happening, the only choice you have is to choose it because it's happening, to allow it because it's happening, or to resist it and deny it. But that doesn't mean you don't care, and that doesn't mean you're not going to act being consistent with your true nature, which is that you're not going to stand for unnecessary suffering. You're not going to stand for injustice. That's caring, right? But you don't mind the way things occur because they are that way. Not, to resist it is just going to cause suffering. Okay, have a good day.
Thank you, David.
See you next time.